everybody? I'm Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, and everybody's got a price for lazy booking.
Hey, this is your Olympic hero, Kurt Angle, and you're listening to Lazy Booking. No, it's true. It's damn true.
Ho! Hey, folks, I'm WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and if you want to know what's going on in wrestling, check out Lazy Bookings. Ho!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of Lazy Booking right here on A2DRadio.com from the brand new Real Talk Studios here in Runnymede, New Jersey. And we are brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy. You can call the doctor, Mr. Paul Vidal, who can take care of all your specialized physical therapy needs. And you can find him on the web at www.specializedphysicaltherapy.com.
No paper to slam now. What's up, guys? Welcome to Lazy Booking this week. It's an exciting show. We have another guest we're going to be bringing to you. But first, let's not forget our topic of conversation this week, which we will talk about in the second half. That will be NXT is the hottest show in wrestling right now. Agree, disagree. And that's brought to you by ATS Sports Picks. Use the promo code A2D, 20% off all first-time packages. Go for the big package. Get the most bang for your buck. Win some money on A2D because we love to see the family succeed. ATSSportsPick.com. Check them out. We have a true NWA legend on the show tonight, Maddie.
We do.
You know, and we've had guys who have history with WCW, WWE, you know, all over the place. But this is a true NWA legend, a guy who dug his heels in, kind of stuck by the banner in the 80s and early 1990s before his career wrapped up in 1992, and that is one Mr. Nikita Koloff, the Russian Nightmare. This guy's accolades go all over the place. I mean, you look, he's won multiple titles. He has participated. You know, you look at NXT now, and we talk about War Games. We just had a phenomenal War Games match. And Mr. Nikita Koloff, he took place in 4 of those matches. He participated in 4, undefeated, 4-0. We're going to talk to him about that. We're going to talk to him about getting into the wrestling industry. We're going to talk to him about a whole smorgasbord of topics.
Absolutely. It's always exciting when we have legends of wrestling, you know, on here on the show, getting a chance to talk to them. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mr. Brodo is going to man the chat for us, guys. We want you to interact. Nikita is ready to answer your questions, anything you guys want to talk about, especially for all you wrestling historian junkies out there. This is going to be a good one.
Yes,
and there's going to be stuff you're going to learn about Nikita that you probably didn't even realize in his mark that he made in wrestling history. So we're looking forward to it.
Not only that, we may learn things about the Crocket promotion and also maybe learn a little bit more about how the NWA operated a little bit as well.
Absolutely. So we're going to get Nikita on the line now. Nikita. Hey, how are you?
I am wonderful. You?
We're wonderful. We want to thank you for joining us here on Lazy Booking on A2DRadio.com. Again, guys, we have NWA professional wrestling legend Nikita Koloff on the air with us. We want to thank you for your time. And if you're tuning in, guys, you can check this interview out on YouTube, Periscope, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We are on all kinds of podcast platforms that you'll be able to catch it if you miss it tonight. But we want to thank you, Nikita, for joining us, taking the time. We've been looking forward to speaking with you. First and foremost, how were your holidays?
You know, I appreciate the question. Had a phenomenal time. I had the opportunity to see all my daughters, of which I have 4.
Wow.
Kind of spread out across America, and got to see all the grandchildren, of which I have 7, and number 8 due any day.
Congratulations.
And so, yeah, thank you. And so, yeah, it was a phenomenal time for the holidays, Christmas holidays, and then the New Year. Brought in the New Year. Actually had a conference with a number of different friends called Vision, kind of getting set up for 2020. And so, yeah, it was phenomenal. Which, hey, by the way, that was quite a rundown of where you guys can be found. I just want to make mention of that too. That's pretty impressive.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate that. And we're going to make sure that we let the fam, we call our fan base, our listener base, the fam, and we want to make sure that they're going to be able to locate you on all your social media, and we're going to dive into that. But yeah, we've been looking forward to this. You know, I know me and you, we had a chance to speak at Icons about a month ago, and you know, one of the things that really excited me about this is, you know, I'm an 80s kid, so to speak. So, you know, when I got into WCW, it was 1990 actually. So you were actually kind of one of my first guys that I really followed and enjoyed when I finally got out of that WWF bubble, and really kind of, you know, showed me an entertaining side of the program, of an alternative program. So for me personally, I'm really looking forward to speaking with you today.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate, you know, it was a unique era of time back in those days, the 80s and early 90s. Certainly love all the fan base that we have, you know, that we have developed over the years, and so just, you know, always grateful for the opportunities like this to be able to hopefully reach out and share a little bit of my story with that fan base.
Yes, let's do that. We're excited to do it. Nikita, you started in around 1984, and you were trained by Eddie Sharkey, and you started with Jim Crocket Promotions, correct?
Partially correct.
Okay.
The Eddie Sharkey, I have to almost address this every single time, and I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it's because everyone just assumes because I came from Minneapolis that Sharkey trained me, or if Eddie started taking for shit. They had a so this is not bad, but I could trade. Nikita Koloff and that is that's started with first which by the way I do today, literally just a few blocks away from that office on Top Boulevard. So that's kind of fun. But I broke into the business having had a 5-minute conversation on the phone with Jim Crockett Jr., making sure he understood before I loaded up my car and came to the city that I had never before, that I had no amateur background training in wrestling whatsoever, like none, and zero special training in getting his ring roll prior to driving into Charlotte, Carolina in 1984. So no taker, no training, showed up the day he said to be there from a 5-minute phone call a couple months prior. That was it.
Okay. So let me ask you a question about this. I thought that I read that Jim Crockett, when he hired you, essentially, I believe you went over in 13 seconds in your first match. And is it true that Jim Crockett said to you, you're good to go, but if you trip through the ropes, you're fired?
Well, so again, it's an interesting story because I said to be there. I showed up that morning, and we had the conversation, and I said, basically, let me give a little more backstory on that. So, 5-minute conversation, I said, Mr. Crockett, do you understand? I don't have experience, I know professional training. Yep, that's what they told me. I go, so what do I need to do next? He goes, be in my office on June 4th with your head shaved bald. I go, that's it. Okay, see you then. So I walked in the day, he said to be there. I took a look at me, and you know, it was kind of strange. If I stick your shirt off, I went, okay, well, a little weird, but okay, you know, I'm used to this business. But so it was clear right here. He walked in with 2 guys. He goes, hey, Ivan Koloff, take a look at your partner. So that was my hiring. I mean, there was no cost. That was my hiring. Take a look at your partner. They literally ran on the interview set. We did interviews for hours. Now, Don and I haven't been able to talk because my character was, I'm just off the boat. I don't speak any English, right? So I said, stand there, shirt off, chains around my neck. It looked mean. And I accomplished that. And then when we finished, he said, be in Raleigh, North Carolina tomorrow night, Norton Arena, you're going to wrestle on television. I'm like, okay. So I rode up with Ivan and Don to the show. Right? And yes, if I trip on the ropes and I'm done, that was Crockett's conversation with Ivan.
Oh.
I guess we didn't get there early. With my phone, sort of, we really couldn't even get in the room and do anything. So they showed me in the room.
Nikita, we're having a little issue with your connection. Are you having
You're having a problem with my connection?
Yeah, little service issue.
Better?
I think so.
Hello?
Yeah. Yep. You can continue. I'll let you know if it acts up again.
Let me see if okay, yeah, just let me know because I know sometimes these phones that kind of goofy, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, the long and short of that story is, so he tells Ivan, I think he said that maybe having second thoughts or something. He tells Ivan, he goes, hey, he trips on the ropes, get into the ring, he's on it, he's history, he's done. So Ivan told me that, and I thought, oh my God, well, how hard can that be? Well, if you've never been in a professional wrestling ring or tried to get in one, you don't know how hard that can be until you've tried it. Now, fortunately, I did not tip on the ropes. So the career was not over before it started, and I was able to secure a win 11 seconds after my first appearance in the ring.
You know what? I can relate to that. I mean, obviously, I haven't been really in the wrestling industry. I did participate in a CZW show, and it's interesting enough that the one thing I thought about stepping into a ring with no experience was, please do not trip on the rope. I was extra careful, extra careful to make sure that second leg swinging back in did not clip the rope, and it is very intimidating if you haven't done it at all.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the launch of my career, and then it just catapulted from there.
Wow. Yeah, and I mean, listen, they strapped a rocket to your back. You know, they paired you with Ivan Koloff, another true legend in the professional wrestling industry. And I mean, you guys obviously had quite a run in the NWA, two-time tag team champions. And obviously going over and defeating Dusty Rhodes and Manny Fernandez, and then the Rock and Roll Express, all legendary names in this business.
Yeah.
And obviously too, even in your solo career, you're defeating the likes of Wahoo McDaniel, and this is all within your first couple of years. Did you feel like you were immediately kind of pushed into this spot, and did you feel any kind of pressure working with these well-established names?
Not so much pressure. As much as looking back, better word would be gratitude. And a career early on, like you're referring to. I like what you said. Put the back and take off, right? Mm-hmm. I feel very fortunate and a lot of gratitude that I was able to step in the rings with the likes of a Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Rock and Roll Express, Wahoo McDaniel, Dory Funk Jr. for the wrestling historians out there. Johnny Weaver, who was legendary here in the Carolinas. Rufus R. Train Jones. I mean, I did a ring with all these guys who had, just incredible careers here in the Mid-Atlantic and in wrestling itself that were gracious enough to all put me over and make me look good, even though I didn't know hardly anything at all. So pretty amazing.
Wow. What was it like to work with Ivan Koloff and travel the road with him?
But it was never a dull moment. I mean, I eventually nicknamed him La Machine. I mean, the guy just, it was, man, I mean, he would go. I mean, we'd be on the dresser and he'd be doing crunches and into squats and, you know, hundreds of them before the matches and then even after the matches, you know, you might catch him working out after a match. And or if we're in a hotel, he's going up and down the staircases at the hotels, you know, getting his cardio in. And he was just a machine. Not to mention, you know, between him and Don Canola, you know, as the World Tag Team Champions at the time, you know, a great, really, I have to kudos to the two of them. The tribute I have to pay to the two of them for the career I had, because considering I had no experience after that first night in Raleigh, for the next 2-3 months, we would get to the towns 2 or 3 hours early before we were supposed to be there. These guys would get in the ring with me, bump all over the ring, and teach me the mechanics of wrestling. And then I'd have a very short single match that night. It would last a minute, maybe 2. Ivan would sit in my corner. I'd sit in their corner for the World Tag match. I'd watch them. Ivan would watch me. And then on the drive home, then we'd talk about old school psychology. So prior to the match, the mechanics of wrestling, go out and apply it. And then after the match, the psychology of wrestling. That's how I cut my teeth those first 2 or 3 months, coupled with all the legendary guys I got to be in the ring with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just, you know, blown away with the success I was able to have early on.
Yeah, and honestly, at the time that you were in too, that when you really kind of broke into the business, you know, obviously with the gimmick that was kind of placed on you as far as, you know, the Russian Nightmare, it was a tough time with you know, political standing with Russia. What were the towns like in terms of reception? And again, this is when kayfabe was still a thing, and you know, people believed in the character. They believed that's the person you were. So can you kind of tell us about what it was like going town to town? And, you know, were there any instances where, you know, you guys were worried for safety or anything of that nature?
Yeah, great question. I mean, the fans love to hate me, right? I mean, at one point I was voted by, you know, fan polls, you know, the number one most hated guy in professional wrestling. Quite an honor, especially during the year. I mean, that's just what you want, right? You want people hating you.
Absolutely.
That's what buys the ticket, you know, to draws the crowds, to, you know, buys the ticket and pays the bills and boosts your check, right? So on that note, yeah, there were people. It was the Cold War era. You're correct, and people. It was not hard in any town we went into, you know, to get the USA chant going at all. I mean, especially with Ivan and even Don by our side. But so that was relatively easy. And then there were some, like I remember one particular time that we were going to Charleston, South Carolina, and Crockett informed us that they got some calls in the office, you know, death threats on the Koloff, that they show up in Charleston. He's like, we'll just get security there, beat it up. So the sheriff beat us at the county line, escorts us to the building. They have extra security in the building. The sheriff escorts us back to the county line, and away we go.
Wow.
And 6 different matches, 5 against the Nature Boy Ric Flair, 1 against Magnum PA in his hometown of Norfolk, Virginia, that I literally, as fans, made it over the barricade, made it into the ring, and came after me. So I would say I was pretty well hated.
And so correct me if I'm wrong on this. I've read that you have considered your favorite match of your career, against Ric Flair for the NWA World Title at the Great American Bash in 1985, and that's kind of, I transitioned right to that just because that was an instance where a fan tried to attack you during a match. Would you say that's accurate, that that's maybe your favorite or most memorable match for yourself, and can you kind of talk about that?
Sure, and that is the first one. That is the first time a fan came in. That was it. The interesting thing about that match is that, I'm in the ring, Flair's down on the mat, Ivan's down on the floor. The referee, I see the referee, David Crockett, and I'm pinned up against the ropes. And in my mind, I'm like, hang on, Flair, Ivan, Crockett, who the heck? And there's Tom. Oh my gosh, this must be a fan. And the Tom story is part of the show, and then when they realized it wasn't, they bailed in like the Keystone Cops and eventually get him out. But that said, I typically refer to that match. Look, it's hard for me, honestly, to pinpoint any one match because when I look back on it, certainly that match, the American Bash, the first ever War Games, some of the matches against the Road Warriors, Dusty and I's, the Superpowers. I mean, matches. So there's a lot of matches I could probably point to. I guess I point to that one because keep in mind, at that point in my career, in 13 months from my debut in Raleigh, North Carolina, I'm now the World Tag Team Champion, the World Six-Man Champion, and I'm wrestling Ric Flair for the World Heavyweight title in front of however many, 25, 30, 35,000 people, however many were there, a lot of people, right? At the first ever Great American Bash. So, needless to say, it's very memorable, that match is, especially because of how really young I was still in my career, and then to be in the ring with someone like, the nature boy Ric Flair, who's flying in on a helicopter, for the match that night. And we talked about surreal in a sense. That might have been the height of it.
Oh, wow, yeah. I can imagine.
That's actually a legendary image of Flair when he comes down in the helicopter to go wrestle that matchup. When you think of NWA wrestling, that's a match you think of immediately.
Absolutely.
Just the epicness of it.
And speaking of Rick, you also were able to main event a Starrcade with Rick, and I believe the roles were switched at this point because this was now when you were running as a face. And I did go back and watch quite a few of your matches actually again over the last 2 days, and particularly with that Starrcade match. And I went back and really watched the War Games, which is one of my favorite stipulations or gimmick type of a match that they have now. Did you know at that time, and because we think about what WrestleMania means now and what Starrcade was and what it's kind of the place it's held now, as far as the alternate to WrestleMania over history and all the big moments there. Did you know how big of a moment that was at that time to main event a Starrcade with Ric Flair?
Well, I knew. Yes, in the sense that Starrcade was kind of kept up the the show of shows, the granddaddy of them all, if you will. So again, certainly to headline that, and it wasn't just. I have to say, it wasn't just that one match. I mean, it was a loaded card, and certainly a great group of guys that I had the privilege of working with over that period of time. But you have to be one of the headliners, or the main event against the Nature Boy. And it was the roles were flipped. Now he's healing, and I'm I'm the baby face, I'm the good guy, and so to have that opportunity to really experience both sides of it, right? Being hated, and then in a sense being loved. was a incredible experience overall. But certainly the headline that Starrcade was special.
You had a lot of really memorable feuds. You can go back and talk about the Road Warriors, you know, the Four Horsemen and Ric Flair, Sting, who then you aligned with later, towards the tail end of your career, Magnum TA. Is there a particular feud or a person that you worked a program with that you look at and you say, this was my, my greatest feud of my career?
Well, I can say for certain, whether it's through these interviews or out when I'm doing Legends autograph signings, etc., that the most talked about is the best of 7 series against Magnum.
Yeah.
By far.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing brought up, was the best of 7. And again, Magnum was being groomed to become, the next heavyweight champion for the NWA. Our styles were similar in that we both were what I like to call snug, but others like to stiff, but just a choice of words. but our styles were very similar, and we were both okay with that. And if I had one fan say I had dozens and dozens of fans say, I don't know about those other matches for they're doing. That match with Nikita Koloff and Magnum TA was real. No one convinced me otherwise,
Yeah.
But that was our goal. That was he and I, and that was our goal for to portray that. And because of the chemistry, great chemistry with each other, and the way we built that story. I mean, Dusty Rhodes was ingenious coming up with creative ideas. You mentioned the War Games, Dusty Rhodes. You mentioned the Great American Bash, Dusty Rhodes. You mentioned the best of 7 series of Magnum, Dusty Rhodes. I mean, he was the genius behind many ideas. And then the way we unfolded it, right? 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 3-1, 3-2, 3-3, coming down to the 7th and final match. And somehow or another, somehow that chain got in there. I still hadn't figured that one out. But that's by far the most talked about and certainly memorable. Terry and I still talk about it from time to time. And we'll go on sometimes and we'll do some road stories together sometimes, and that's the topic, right?
Yeah, and I mean Magnum TA, another wonderful name, and unfortunate, with his incident that derailed his career, obviously. But at that time, and you brought up Dusty, and I would like to hear a little bit about your relationship with Dusty. But Dusty was a believer in you, and when the incident did happen with Magnum, I believe it was Dusty who thought, with the change of, the Cold War ending, that it was time to turn you face and kind of have you step into the role that Magnum was covering at that time?
Yep. Yeah. Here again. Went on to sat me down at Philadelphia. Had just come back from a tour in Japan, and to convince me that Magnum's accent was real, because the things they're working me,
Yeah.
They're like, no, this is like for real. It's like he's broke his neck, and then that settled in, and then they laid out the idea of the turn, and that's all. Between the two of them, I don't know how many decades of experience they had in wrestling. I thought, well, they certainly know more about this than I do. I'm still at the time. I'm still only like 2+ years into this thing. So, but they gave me the choice, though. They said, you can say yay or nay. Take some time to think about it. So, yeah, if you think it'll work, let's do it. And the way we did it, I mean, you couldn't repeat it anymore, because obviously the internet and everything else is still like one of the best kept secrets in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
And again, the fans say to me, one of the best turns they've ever seen in wrestling. Again, I'm not saying, that's not me saying that about me. I'm just voicing what many fans have said to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so to have that opportunity, because yeah, Stuff did believe in me, even prior to the turn. I mean, when he came in the territory, the book, the very first thing he did was the match against me. We did an arm wrestling deal.
Nice.
And so that set up some matches with me and Ivan against him and Magnum and him and Manny Fernandez, yada, yada, yada. So that said, to have the next two and a half years of traveling exclusively with him, I mean, maybe because, it was him and I riding around in his, his convertible red Mercedes, to towns and just talking about life and just outside of the world of wrestling, and to get to know him on a very personal level. I grew to love the man, up to the day he passed away, but felt like we had a really great relationship with each other, not just inside the wrestling business, but even outside the business.
Yeah, I mean, Dusty is one of the true innovators of professional wrestling, and even to this day, you guys won a tag team tournament together, the Jim Crockett Memorial Cup, and WWE and NXT has the Dusty Rhodes Memorial Tag Team Tournament, just kind of as a tip of the cap for everything that Dusty's done. What was that moment like to win that tournament with Dusty?
Well, pretty special because, it was Magnum's first return back to an arena after half stage. So when you see him make his way down to the ring, for anyone who's watched that or it's seen a clip of that or someone told me, man, I was there. I saw it live, which not always blows me away. Man, I was there in Charlotte when he turned. I was there live. I was there for the American Bash with View Flair. So there were people that were in Baltimore and live, and even for those who weren't seen that, when Magnum comes down and I jump out, we embrace. I mean, that was real. It was really real in the sense that he and our relationship went from a professional, a level of respect on a professional level to becoming personal. And in fact, that unfortunate tragedy certainly was turned into triumph for me, becoming one of the superpowers, but also established a friendship, relationship outside of wrestling that extends to this day. I mean, you and I talk throughout it from time to time, just catch up, see how families are doing, and sort of see each other as well. And so it was a very, very special night for all that.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that. War Games. You brought up Dusty and War Games. I have to ask, how brutal is it to be a participant in those matches? Because especially in those days, you saw a lot of color in those matches. They were brutal. And when you talk about the likes of, Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard and, a lot of the names that participated back then.
And wasn't it that the cage did not have as much of a ceiling to it?
Oh,
so you could easily hit your head on if someone was trying to give you like a suplex or trying to like do a back body drop. It's like next thing you know, your feet are hitting the top of the cage to go down to the mat. It was a very weirdly structured cage.
Yeah. Can you talk about the brutality of those matches? I mean, I would imagine you were sore for a few days after coming out of those.
Well, I can. So I'll start with the very first one, which established the whole concept of it was the best word to describe that was electrifying. I mean, you could realistically, feel the electricity in the building. There was just a pulse of electricity that was flowing through the building that night. And all of us not really knowing how it was going to play out. I mean, we get ideas, but again, right? We've never done it before, so you don't really know. And to your point, a point being put, a trap being put on it. certainly created a different dynamic, like you said, for sure. And so, there's other things you had to then also begin to think about before you just naturally, like you said, give a guy a backdrop or something. Well, that happened, that late tonight or whatever. And so I would say it was grueling in this sense. If you were the first 2 or 3 guys in the ring, it was more grueling than if you were the last guy in the ring.
Yeah, that's true.
Because the first 2 guys, they're going the whole entire deal, right? So you're talking 30 plus, right?
Yeah.
Where the last guy coming in, he might be going like maybe 5 minutes before it's over, So whoever got the short straw, I guess you see the long straw there, who was the last one in, the winner of that deal. But it was very physical, and you really did have to think through some of the different things you might do or consider doing because of having that top on the cage and just the rotation of having 10 guys in there and just not knowing potentially who might be coming at you at any particular time. So yeah, pretty incredible night.
Do you feel a sense of pride, kind of knowing the legacy and you were a big part of the War Games legacy, that even with WCW being defunct for so long, that the fans continue to clamor for War Games to come back, and it's a little bit different the way they do it now, but there's similarities and comparisons, and it does give us a taste of it, and it does kind of create curiosity, with things like the network and DVDs that fans can go back and who see what it is now and explore the legacy where it started at. Do you feel a sense of pride knowing that you guys laid that groundwork and all these years later people clamored for that to come back and it finally did?
Yeah, any of that stuff, part of all of that era again, and some of the things we've seen that have either continued to work or even Billy Corgan and Dave Lagana bringing it back to Crockett Cup last year.
Yeah,
and the opportunity to be a part of that and present the cup and reestablishing the booth that Evan and I wore. On that particular night, or in Atlanta a few weeks ago, as they're bringing back the World Television, the NWA belt that I wore around my waist, and to be able to be a part of some of the nostalgia type things, certainly humbling to say the least. And I will say this though, as much as they try to bring some of those things back, I'll kind of say this tongue in cheek, but often imitated, never duplicated. So
I can't disagree with you.
So what I mean by that? In other words, I'm glad they're trying to reestablish some of that stuff, but I don't know. Again, can you ever duplicate the original War Game?
Never.
No, I don't think you can. I mean, you can try, but I really don't think you can, just because of the uniqueness of it and how it had never been done before. Some of those things. So, very, very thankful that they're there.
I don't even think WCW, when it was done being a part of the NWA, I don't even think they really recreated the magic in the War Games matches they had in the late 90s, getting into the early 2000s.
No, I mean, going back today and watching those matches and kind of hearing, you give us that outside perspective, I could feel that. In 2020, to go back and watch a match from 1987, I could feel the electricity, particularly those first 2 that you guys ran out. Those a couple weeks apart, actually. You could definitely feel the energy and electricity in that crowd. And I know back then the NWA and those early WCW days, particularly all those southern towns, they were another animal. People talk about us here in the Northeast now, but they were a different animal back then.
Yeah.
We do have a couple of questions. Oh, go ahead.
Well, let me comment on that. But go back, and for those listening, you've never watched. Go back and don't necessarily watch the match, or just watch the fans and or listen for fan reaction.
Yeah.
And how I would summarize that, guys, is by saying this. The group of guys we had together working together, let's just say the superpowers, Nikita, Dusty, and the Road Warriors versus the Four Horsemen, as an example. The chemistry that the 8 of us had working together with each other, all for one common cause, to give the fan the greatest match possible. I think that came across, which is what drew the fans so emotionally into it and made it what it was. So
Absolutely,
there you go.
absolutely. Nikita, our producer Ryan here has a couple of questions in the chat you can read off. I can't say it. Okay. He's going to send me a couple questions from our viewers that we're going to read through.
All right. In the meantime, I'll ask Nikita a question about this. When you were there when Jim Crockett officially had to sell to Turner, what were you thinking when that happened? Like, that it was no longer – it was still affiliated with the NWA for a short period of time there, but what was your feeling when the Crockett sold to Turner, and what kind of vibes were you getting from it?
Well, it changed. It changed from a mom-and-pop organization to a corporately owned company. And by that meaning, it became a chapter or a folder in Ted Turner's filing cabinet, meaning it didn't have the personal touch like it had when it was a mom-and-pop business. When Jim Crockett's family, 50-something years, owned it and had a more hands-on personal touch to it. And so immediately it changed because they hired guys who, knew little to nothing about professional wrestling and, ran a studio that had wrestling in it. So that was their qualification for being, from the ivory tower and a part of it. They could call them the shots. And so it changed dramatically. And in fact, over the course of time, I mean, it was, I get to the arena and there'd be 8 matches on the card, and maybe one was the one that was advertised, and no rhyme or reason. Even the same guys would be there, but for whatever reason, they'd flip it all around, and it just made no sense. And it just became the difference between mom and pop and corporate America, a personal touch versus just a business that let's hope we can make some money with this thing.
Yeah. John C. Danzo, he's one of our regular listeners and viewers. He did ask about Ivan Koloff, and you did talk about that. So, John, I would say go back to a little bit earlier in the show, and you can get the thoughts from Nikita on Ivan. But he did ask, were you ever approached about going to the WWF? And if so, why did you not make the jump?
No. The only discussion of that was with Barry Dorso, who was Crusher Khrushchev at the time. Who informed me he was going there to become part of going to form a new team called Demolition, and wanted me to be a part of it. And I basically, frankly, said, Barry, I worked so hard on this character to go and abandon this character just to become somebody completely different, somebody else. And the other part of that was that I honestly felt like there was kind of a spin-off of the Road Warriors, and out of respect for Joe and Mike, and Joe being a good friend and making the call that even gave me the opportunity to get into pro wrestling, out of respect for them, that was another reason I chose not to do that. So those are two of the main reasons. And then lastly, never even really considered or entertained the idea personally of going there. Anybody who spent any amount of time with me will understand there's a word called loyal or loyalty. I like to say now, put a hashtag up sometimes, NWA for life, right? Hashtag. Because I'm an NWA guy. I mean, I am. I traveled around. I did a few things for the AEW, but that was really even in kind of partnership with the NWA and wrestling Larry Zbyszko for his title and all that. But through, I'm an NWA guy, and because Jim Crockett gave me the break, I made the decision. I was going to stick with the NWA. Realizing that I go there and probably make whatever 5 times, 10 times, 100 times mine. Whatever. I don't know. But the money was less important to me. The loyalty was more important.
Billy Thrasher, who is one of our actual original founders of the show, sent me a question for you, and it kind of transitioned to you talking about being an NWA guy for life, and you talked about, being on NWA Power a few weeks ago. What was that like to be able to kind of step back? And I got to say, the NWA Power set, it's so cool. It's like awesome. It's like stepping back into those days, and it's so on point. Can you talk about what it's like now to be able to come back and give back to the NWA, who, is kind of making a resurgence right now?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, look, I drove into Atlanta, and it brought back instant memories of driving down the 10th and Techwood. I mean, I got off on the 10th Street exit. Are you kidding me? On the Techwood exit, and so just a few blocks away, and then to walk into the studio, even though it's not exactly, it's bigger than the 10th and Techwood studio, but it's still a studio. So just the fun memories that came back from being at 10th and Techwood at the PBS studio was incredible. And then that night, the warm reception from the fans. I mean, again, I'm so grateful to the fans. I mean, you walk in and they start the welcome back chat. Chatter.
Oh, it was great. I watched it. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was again just like, man. I just you might say felt at home, and the warm embrace from the fans just made it was the cherry on top for the night, if you will. So I love it. I love what these guys hope they stick to their guns, continue to do it. They got a very unique product, and I hope they stick with it.
Absolutely. Another question we have two questions here from John. John asks, what was the best rib ever pulled, and any good ones that were pulled on you?
You know what? Truthfully, I wasn't a big rib guy, and I was a business guy. So here's how I would truthfully answer that question. I was a business guy from the day I broke into business. So I wasn't a big jokester. And majority of guys knew I was a business guy, and so there weren't a whole lot of ribs pulled on me, a whole lot of jokes pulled on me either. I wasn't much of a joker, and so that's probably the best way I could answer that question is no real great stories, like some of the guys probably have. I tell you, guys, you ever interview him, you never have. If you ever get Rick Steiner, he was one of the biggest jokesters on the planet there was. He'd probably be the guy that's. I'll listen to this. One of Steiner, he could be driving down the interstate at 70 miles an hour and get hit in the rear and look in the rearview mirror, and it's Rick Steiner driving a car trying to push you along the interstate at 70 miles an hour.
Oh my Lord, that is scary.
That's like legit. Or Rick Steiner coming up alongside you, like he used to do with some of the horsemen and stuff, and you not know he's coming, and him sitting outside his car window again on an interstate at 70 miles an hour, and reach over, be close enough to try to open up your passenger door while your car and your van's going down the interstate.
Oh my!
Those are Rick Steiner type ramps type things. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That is scary.
Yeah, I'm like, Rick, he's, I think, legit crazy. Well, at least I thought he was back there. I'm like, dude, you're like legit, like crazy. Like, you are just crazy. So anyway.
I know. So in 2006, you were inducted into the. I'm just trying to make sure I have the dates right. It was 2008. You were inducted into the NWA Hall of Fame. In 2006, you were inducted into the Luthez Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame?
2003, I think.
2003. Okay. Obviously, great members. The NWA Hall of Fame. That was a no-brainer for you. I mean, we all instantly associate with that. Have you ever? And this is another question from John. Have you ever been approached about the WWE Hall of Fame? Would you accept?
I've not been approached. More important to me, more important to me than me being be Ivan Koloff being in the Hall of Fame, who deserves it
Agreed.
way more than me. I mean, the guy has a legendary 35, 40-year career. Beat Bruno Sammartino in Madison Square Garden, almost caused a riot after a 7 or 8 year title run. And if nothing else, just on his career, I feel he warrants his being in any and every Hall of Fame. So that would be more important to me than me getting into basketball. Would be for Ivan to do it.
I know towards the tail end of your career, you had suffered an injury from working with Vader, and which essentially pretty much, I guess, was the end of your career. Were you prepared? Were you winding yourself down from that for the next step, or was that kind of a sudden thing that happened?
Great question. Certainly, you never anticipate getting injured. It was not career-ending.
Okay.
And we know it was serious, but when I set a goal when I broke in full Ivan Koloff that I'd be out of active ring action by the time I was 35. That was my goal. Remember, businessman, right?
Yeah.
That was my goal at 35. The night I got injured against Vader, 2 injuries against him that night, and I was rehabilitating because I got a hernia. Thinking, it's legit about 500 pounds. So I got a hernia that night. He injured my neck that night. He had a bit of a reputation of being reckless, and so he beat me out on the floor. And so I was rehabbing. So I had the hernia surgery, rehabbing my neck. And over Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, I thought, I'm getting ready to 34. By the time I'm back in ring shape, after the surgery, and do I want to go back for like 9 months, 6 months, whatever? I'm like, no, you know what? I actually don't. So walked away under my own terms, about a year earlier than I had set as a goal. But all that to say, it's okay because it really set the stage for really even what I'm doing now. So walked away under my own terms at that time. And yes, I was preparing to walk away anyway, but that is maybe accelerated it by a year.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it seemed like you were kind of transitioning and kind of getting involved in other things, which we definitely want to make sure that we want to get into that. Yeah. So we do have to take our break, Nikita. We take about a 5-minute break. Can we get you back on in 5 minutes and we'll go over what you're doing today?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, cool. All right. So we're going to let you go now. I'll call you back in 5 minutes and we're going to talk about what you're doing today. What you think about the current product, and we'll get into that.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
We'll talk to you in a few. So, guys, stick with us. We're going to have Nikita back on in a couple of minutes. We're going to go over, I know we wanted to talk about what he's doing today. He's got a lot of really great personal products. He's written 3 books. We want to talk about that. And obviously, I know some people want to get his thoughts on the current product today. So, again, first half brought to you by
Specialized Physical Therapy, which you can call Dr. Paul Vidal. He'll take care of all your specialized physical therapy needs if you have any issues with pain or what have you. And you can find him at www.specializedphysicaltherapy.com.
And don't forget, ATS Sports Picks, A2D promo code, get you 20% off on first-time purchases. Get in there, win some money on A2D. We'll be coming back to you guys on the other side with Nikita Koloff.
everybody. I'm Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, and everybody's got a price for lazy booking. Hey, this is your Olympic hero, Kurt Angle, and you're listening to Lazy Booking. No, it's true. It's damn true. Ho! Hey, folks, I'm WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and if you want to know what's going on in wrestling, check out Lazy Bookings. Ho!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Lazy Booking right here in the Real Talk Studios in Runnymede, New Jersey. Brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy. You can call Dr. Paul Vidal for all your specialized physical therapy needs. You can find him on the web at www.specializedphysicaltherapy.com.
That's right. Check out the doctor as well as ATS Sports Picks. A2D promo code gets you 20% off first-time purchases. Guys, win some money on A2D. Let's go. We want everybody to succeed and buy that A2D merch.
Oh, yeah.
Our topic of conversation, which we will get into shortly, NXT is the hottest brand in wrestling today. Agree, disagree. But we're going to get Nikita back online. He was awesome in the first half. We did a whole career reflection with him. And in the second half here, we're going to talk about what he's doing today, life after wrestling, his thoughts on the current product. So we're going to call him now. Hey, Nikita.
Hey, guys.
Hey, thanks for hanging with us. We appreciate you. Welcome back.
Yes, sir.
Again, we were just introing back in with the fam. Again, first half of the show, fantastic. A career retrospect, stories, psychology, and everything from Nikita. Wonderful insight. We want to talk about now your life after pro wrestling. I know you've been heavily involved in a lot of things. You've written 3 books. So we want to talk about life after wrestling and some of your projects that you're currently involved in.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. To share a little bit, you mentioned the books. I'll just start there. Having written 3. In fact, I'm in the process of those first 3, and actually in the process of rewriting the very original ones, making the change. So we're in the process of doing a rewrite on that. What kind of a remake, if you will, of the first one. Second one, Wrestling with Success. I did with it was a project I did with a friend of mine, Jeffrey Gittimer, on to the business world, and or just in general. If you want to up your game, go to the next level. We all wrestle with success to some degree, and that one was geared to just help people take their game to the next level. And the third one was the life story, A Tale of the Ring of Redemption, and far back as I can remember to kind of present day. And then I'm actually working on a 4th book right now. It's about 2/3 completed. That'll really just be more of a just kind of a personal day-to-day reflections. I think is how I would kind of phrase that. I started a working title on it, but the second and third book, those who are interested, if they want to get their hands on a personalized copy, we'll give some information at the end as far as where they can email me and how to get a personalized copy shipped right to them that I'll sign for them. And so that's in the book realm. Outside of that, when I left wrestling in 1993, major transition in my life in October. In fact, 17 October 1993 was when I found myself in a church at an altar, giving my life to Jesus. Now, I didn't grow up in Russia, as everyone has figured that out now. Nor did I grow up in the church.
Although I'm sure some days in Minnesota could feel like you were in the snowy winds of Russia.
It's Siberia. Yeah, it felt like Siberia sometimes. From what I understand, Siberia, like I've never been there yet. But yeah, cold. But that decision set me on a path, a trajectory, a destiny, if you will, completely different from anything I would have ever imagined in my life. Because that decision that day, if you want to fast forward to today, so guys, I've now been. In fact, I just was in my. In November this past year, I was just in my 29th country.
Wow.
29 different countries. I have ministered and plus or minus about 1,200 churches at this point. Actually, Lex Luger and I, the Total Package, and I have a men's ministry together. We do here in the Carolinas called Man Camp. We'll give you a website for that later. If you want to, if you're a man 18 years or older, you want to come out and hang out with Lex Luger and I for a few days, let us pour into you, then we'll make sure you get that website information.
Yeah.
So men's ministry is a real focus of mine as well, and setting goals actually I set goals for the next 5 years. So from 2020 to 2025, on that include the 3 books, the new book, kind of the remake on some of them or updating some of them, but also 20 countries over the next 5 years is what I've targeted to travel to over the next 5 years, and centered around, focus quite a bit on men and just speaking into the lives of men, helping men be better men, and continuing to grow and improve myself as well. And so in a nutshell, that's a little bit of what I'm doing currently. I'm still involved in wrestling too, in the sense of Legends autograph signings, and like I said, I'll be in Tampa in April, and so I still get out there, and I'll be in Ohio in March, and I still like getting out there and meeting the fans and taking pictures and hearing stories from them now. It's great. You're hearing my story tonight. I love hearing your stories. To all the listeners out there, I love hearing your stories.
And I could,
just so you know.
And I could speak firsthand to that I know. I could speak firsthand to that, and I know, because me and you had a very nice talk when I got to meet you in Philadelphia, and one of the nicest guys, one of the most personal experiences that you can have if you get a chance to get out to any of these conventions or attend any of his retreats or events that he's doing. Please do so. And you won't regret it. You're really a class act. I have to say, you are a class act. It's really a nice experience.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm very, very humbled by that. Thank you.
Yeah. Tell us about your social media, where we can find you.
So I do have a Facebook presence. Now I actually have someone that kind of manages that, oversees that, just because the consumption of time that it can take. But I do put, from time to time, some active posts on there and check, direct messages and that sort of thing. But more frequently, I'm daily on Instagram and Twitter. People can find me just Nikita Koloff with the number 1 behind it. That's the real me. Nikita Koloff with the number 1 behind it. If you're looking for me on Facebook, look for the one that's really me. There's a picture of me, the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, and another friend of ours standing in a river. It's actually the Jordan River in Israel. We were there a few years ago on a trip, the 3 of us, and baptizing each other in the Jordan River. So look for that picture on Facebook, and that's the real me on Facebook. And then websites, just real quick, if you want information on the Man Camp, just go to mancamp.info. That's mancamp.info, INFO. That take you right to information on how you could spend a few days with Lex and I. And then, of course, NikitaKoloff.com is my bigger website with photo galleries and videos and a trip down memory lane, as I like to call it.
I love that. Just real quick, you did say you're still involved in wrestling. Before we let you hop off, there is curiosity from our listeners how closely you follow the current product. Do you watch WWE or NXT or AEW? I know that you're involved with NWA now in some capacity, but do you follow WWE or NXT or AEW?
I'm not an avid week-to-week follower. I'll pick up little bits of information. Again, as I'm out at autograph signings, people kind of fill me in, or social media, right, kind of helps me kind of keep up to speed a little bit on what's going on. So if someone would have, I'd be less than honest to say I could have a legitimate conversation about the latest, greatest, hottest thing that's going on in any of those organizations. I am following the NWA more closely, again, because NWA for life, hashtag, but so I follow it more closely. Again, I love what Corgan and Lagana are doing, and the guys that they're assembling there. And so as far as the modern day product, I'm an old school guy, so it's just kind of hard for me. I did a tour across Canada a couple years ago, 21 cities in 21 days, covered 5,500 miles. It was insane.
Wow.
But loved it. I loved it because 19 of the 21 cities I had never been to in Canada, and I was kind of blown away, truthfully, by the Nikita Koloff fans in Canada, although I had only wrestled there not even a handful of times. It was awesome. And the country's beautiful. For all the Canadian listeners out there, your country is beautiful. But I say all that to say, I was flattered by the young guys come to me and go, every night they go, hey, do you have any suggestions? Do you have any critiques? And I'm like, man, I don't know if you want it. And they go, no, we want it. And I'm like, all right. I go, well, it's going to be from an old school perspective. So not all this, 20 moves in 36 seconds, that you guys are typical of doing. But to that note, in fact, one of the guys even brought me a notebook. He goes, hey, maybe you could write everything down for all of us.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was really cool. So I did. It was fun. It was fun. So I would give them, if I felt I had something that would enhance their match or make it better, I'd share that with them. And then some of the guys actually would go out the next night or two and actually try to apply it, actually try to put application to it. So, that was pretty fun. That was a lot of fun. So different product nowadays, and obviously than my era. But for those guys who still, go out and perform that old school psychology, there's a fan base that loves it, which is why the NWA is doing what they're doing right now. So.
And I did want to pass this along from our listener, John C. Danzo, who says, thank you, Mr. Koloff, on just being a true class act in the wrestling business, and thank you for all that you continue to give us.
Hey, thank you, guys. And hey, follow me on Twitter and Instagram for this reason. I try every day, every morning, I try to put something, if you spend any length of time with me, we talked 45 minutes, an hour tonight, but if you spend any length of time with me, I like to say I consider myself to be the eternal optimist. No matter how dark or black a cloud you bring me, I'm going to do my best to find a silver lining in there somewhere. Okay?
We need more of that.
Well, and on that note, I do my best every day to put up something positive, or on Instagram and Twitter, something encouraging to people that hopefully just may impact your life or help make their day better. So do follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and even check out Facebook. So
I have one last question that I wanted to actually ask you earlier, but we kind of got away from it.
Was it that it was from Russia?
No, we had that answer. Particularly when you talk about Dusty, and you were there for Dusty and all the creativity. And I know that you're not necessarily a full follower of everything, but you do pick up bits and pieces. In terms of what Cody Rhodes is doing right now and kind of picking up the torch where his father kind of handed it off to him, and the businessman and the creative mind that he is, did you know him when he was a kid, and are you surprised by any of this, or is this like, he's a Rhodes, it's not a shock?
Great question. Great questions, or several parts. So first part, I knew Cody when he was in diapers. Cody, if you're listening to this, anyway, you may not remember it. I do. I remember you when you were in diapers. But and I say that to say, no, not surprised in any stretch of the imagination. at all ability, that creative ability and ideas either from his dad or just innately,
Myself, Matt, Ryan, and all of us here at A2D and our fam, we want to tell you, we appreciate the time that you took to speak with us, the wonderful stories, and again, like Nikita said, I'm telling you guys, follow him on social media. He's a great follow. There is a lot of really great motivational things, and he's doing a lot of wonderful things in his life right now. And we will keep an eye for that book. You'll probably hear from me because I'm going to probably look for a personalized version of that. But thank you again for the time tonight. We appreciate it. And from all of us here, Happy New Year to you. Congratulations, on the expecting upcoming grandchild, and we wish you the best.
Thanks so much, and Happy New Year to all the fans, all you guys. Thank you for the opportunity, and hope to meet you in person as I'm out and about traveling around, whether it's the wrestling circles or in the ministry circles. Hope to meet you face to face, take a picture, sign an autograph, and just say hi. So thank you guys. Have a wonderful night.
You too, Nikita. Take care.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it, guys. Nikita Koloff, class act, NWA legend, doing a lot of great things in his life now.
Yep.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
That was awesome. That was awesome.
That was a lot of fun. And we got a promo at the end of it.
Yes.
I know.
It was great.
I know. That's awesome.
That'll be in a commercial.
The Russian Nightmare versus the American Nightmare. Oh, boy.
Put on AEW pay-per-view.
And thank you guys to the fam who participated in that. I mean, that was a lot of fun, and you guys clearly enjoyed that.
Yes.
Check him out. Check out his social media, and great follow. Our topic of conversation tonight. We're gonna. I know. How do we go into it now?
After that,
I don't even know. How much time we got, Ryan?
Well, let me see.
We still got a little bit of time.
Half
We got about
hour.
Half hour.
Yeah.
Wow.
John, by the way, passes along a message. He says, "Awesome interview, guys. A-list all the way."
Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks,
John.
Always,
Great
man,
questions,
man.
by the way,
you
John.
Guys,
Yes.
you guys drive it, man. We're trying to bring you guys
Absolutely, yeah.
the best that's out there.
Anytime you guys ever want to ask a question to anyone we're interviewing, we are more than happy to read it off to them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Our ATS sports picks topic, NXT is the hottest brand going right now. You had a little bit of insight there, and I had to ask a question about Cody.
Of course.
I knew he knew who he was when he was a kid, and just kind of being around that and around Dusty, is kind of one of those things. But, I would say NXT is the best product going right now. It's not to say that AEW is bad, guys, because I know Povia was in here earlier, and he said that he thought that AEW was the best. I just think NXT is red hot right now.
I think it's the most consistent. I think we've been able to say that for many, many years. Even before the quote unquote cable television era of NXT. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it depends on where you are. If you're staying strictly like in the States, then I would say yes. But if you're going in like overall, I would say it's NJPW, only because I watch it and they are very consistent with their booking.
Yeah.
So I can't really deny that to them, but that's me, and I watch NJPW. Not for anyone else who doesn't. I could see where the NXT comes from. Totally.
See, I think NJPW has taken hits with some of the names that they've lost over the last couple of years.
Yeah, but I mean, I think they've really done well with kind of circling the wagons around the guys that they know are not going to leave. Like they've really had the double down with Naito, which they've pulled the trigger on him, which I think benefits them hugely because they've been wanting to do that for so long. And they still have Moxley, who shows up from time to time, and he's the U.S. champ again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, some guys were lost, but they do keep gaining guys. So it's not like they constantly lose it. They're still able to keep it going.
See, when I look at AEW, here we go. I just find it I just find it predictable. Like, it's not that it's not good. I love the Lucha Bros. I told you guys, my stance hasn't changed. I'm high on the tag team division.
Yes, very good tag team
I
division.
still don't think they're doing a good enough job to build enough new stars, and they're relying so heavily on the elite that I just and John Moxley, who they should be at this point. I don't see. When I watch, I feel like it's very predictable, and that's kind of my thing. It's not that the quality's not good. They still suck with the commercial breaks. Although, I'll give them a nod. I'll give them this nod. Last week, when they did the commercial break and Sammy Guevara stood there and just
did
the sign thing through the entire commercial break.
That was great.
For Dustin, that was awesome.
Yes. That was cool.
That's how you do it. That's how you utilize it.
I think the thing is about with AEW is I think it's there's still a lot of growing pains with them. I mean, yeah, there are guys who've been in the wrestling business on the production side of things that have been doing things for a while. And yes, there are some guys in the locker room that have been wrestling for a while. Some of them are relatively new. Just some of them just weren't known. But the point is that, you know, there's still a lot of growing pains going from being an independent wrestler to where your stuff's most likely just being streamed live on, you know, the internet, which it's like, all right, quality, quantity, sometimes you get a little lost there. Whereas TV, there's a lot more to it than that. You know, commercial breaks, you got to have good timing with your matches because you have a strict time to where you have to be off the air. You know, there's a lot more to it than that. I think they're still learning a lot of this on the fly, and I think that that's where a lot of some of their miscues come from. I also think sometimes you're right in a lot of the sense of the younger talent, like MJF, they're kind of building him up, but at the same time, it's kind of like they're putting him with DDP, and I'm like, why is it they're working with DDP? I get that DDP's a big name, and he does have a lot of, you know, ties with the Rhodes and everything, but it's like, it's kind of like, you know, him and Cody should be the main focus right now of him getting built up, you know? And I know they're bleeding towards that match, but I feel like they're kind of going off on these side quests for no reason with his development.
I am a huge MJF fan, and I am really, at this point, let down with the follow-up after the turn on Cody. I just feel like it's almost typical WWE booking that, you know, you have this major moment.
Yeah.
And at the time I said I felt like it was predictable, but it was still a major moment. It was a highly entertaining moment. It was an opportunity to, you know, I said with Nikita, strap the rocket ship. Mm-hmm. They could have strapped the rocket to this kid's back, and now we're going to drag ourselves slowly to the finish line of when we're going to get to Cody and him.
Yeah.
You know, did they pull the trigger too soon? You know, I don't know. I felt like I don't think this needs a slow build like they're trying to get to now.
Yeah.
And it's just it's frustrating to me. I'm banging my head against the wall over this.
It's also tough too because of the fact that, and I know this may sound kind of funny, but you have a heel champion, so the problem is that, okay, if Cody's not champ, so you can't go that route where you say, okay, he can beat Cody and become champion, and you can work that way with it. So now you got to do it where it's, all right, this is just a grudge. This is just pride and grudge on the line here. Yeah. Unfortunately, like you said, they're doing the slow build of it, and it's like, it's not necessary. It's really not necessary to do it. But I kind of understand why, because they're spacing their pay-per-views out. And I think they're trying to get big matches for those, but they've spaced them out far enough to where now it's going to drag a little bit. And this is where it's hard to put that genie back in the bottle. You can't necessarily space out pay-per-views like you used to back in the day. Right. You know, because that genie got pulled out of the bottle a long time ago.
I miss those days. I'm not going to lie. But
it's hard to make that go for a couple months where you build it towards that big climactic moment, you know. And it's, you know, it's one thing if you put a clause in where it's like, okay, they can't touch until the match. It's like, okay, then you could do little creative things that they can't provoke each other or they could get fired or what have you. Well, you can't do that because Cody pretty much runs the company. Yeah. So you can't do that, you know, or something in those regards.
You know, John asks, where do you think NXT is going with Chelsea Green and her new mouthpiece, Robert Stone? So the word out there was she was originally going to go to Raw, and they pulled that back and decided to put her on NXT. So there was a change in shift in where she was going to be placed. I don't know where it's going to go yet. I definitely think that she's going to get a big push right away. But here's why, and it's kind of why I look at NXT, and I look at it and I say, yes, this is the elite brand right now, because every person that I see on NXT, I feel like they mean something. You know everybody on there. You know, not everybody knows Toni Storm.
Yeah.
But she showed up this week to confront Rhea Ripley. They went to a backstory of when she defeated Rhea Ripley in the UK, and immediately she felt like she was important.
And thank you for bringing up backstories, because that's one major critique I have of AEW right now. When they bring somebody in, they never give us any goddamn background, and it bothers the hell out of me.
Agreed.
Every week. The big one was the Butcher and the Blade when they showed up and they dropped Cody. Like, okay, I don't know who these guys are. If they were big in the Indies, I didn't watch anything. I would have known if they were in NJPW, and I would have known if they were in ROH. I don't know who these guys are. Excalibur's just going off saying, oh, it's the Butcher and the Blade. And you stupid fuck, can you tell me something of why I should care that they're dropping Cody right now?
Well, what is like the weirdos? What's the
Dark Order.
The Dark Order
With the vignettes and
Like
everything.
I don't know who I didn't know who they were when they first came out, and
What
they
did
did
used to be
nothing.
called? The Super Smash Bros.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something?
That used to be their tag team.
Right, which is fine, and I've heard of them, but like I didn't put two and two together. And when they
same.
debut, like I'm pretty smart to the business and like following people around, and if I'm a little bit spotty on it, I can't imagine people who have no idea who they are, and this is like they're making this out to be a major thing. Like, give us a backstory. There was no backstory to these guys, and you know, I kind of look at it. I'm sorry, the Sixers are in a very tight game right now. I know Ryan is like freaking out.
Look at
behind
this.
the
Look at this. Look at
production.
this. How do you miss this? How do you miss that?
Oh, you jump too early. That's how you miss it.
Come on, Ben.
They're deep
You're
in
7 foot.
Deep in the fourth quarter, too, by the way.
But like you talked about, you know, the Blade and the Butcher. I know who the one dude is because it's Braxton Sutter. He was in Impact Wrestling, and he's married to Allie. That's her husband.
And I didn't watch Impact, so I didn't know.
Exactly. So you wouldn't know, and you're smart to the business. You know these things.
Yeah, so it's like you need to give background because not everyone's going to know. Like for example, if it had been Tama Tonga and Tungaloa that showed up and dropped Cody, I would have known who they were, but maybe somebody who only watches American wrestling doesn't know who they are because they're only known in Japan.
Right.
You know, it's another example of, yes, I know who they are like you did. You knew who they were, but I didn't. It's like you got to give backstory of why we should care that these people are here. That's what you got to do. And even in WWE, when they don't know who somebody is, you know, or they're trying to keep it mysterious, they won't say anything. They'll be like, I have no idea who this person is, but they just attacked so-and-so. That's a great way to covering your ass. You should at least try and do that too, you know?
That was a weird commercial.
Yeah.
I agree with you. John says NJPW Wrestle Kingdom was crazy great stuff. I missed it this year. I didn't get to watch it this year.
Wrestle Kingdom was amazing.
John,
go back and watch it.
John says also, is the team of Alex Shelley and Kushida in this a one-time thing, or is Alex going to signed going forward? I don't know. I was curious of that myself.
I hope so because
I would love to see them kind of, do a little bit more together.
It's weird how they revealed this, though. Again, and this
They just were like, oh, look, Kushida and a former teammate, Alex Shelley.
And it's prototypical WWE. You see it all the time where, like, they'll reveal something on Twitter, like, an hour before a show. This was obviously not an hour before the show, but I'm not surprised because it seems like they go towards social media trends and the big moment on their Twitter because, you got to follow the Twitter so you get the best breaking moments and everything. But to me, it's another example, and don't get me wrong, I'm very happy to see Alex Shelley back because he was one of my favorites going all the way back to TNA.
Yeah.
And I know he's wrestled all over the world, not just TNA. Yeah. But it's like, come on, like that could have been a great moment. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, because, I mean, Kushida and Alex, for people who don't know, Kushida and Alex Shelley were one of the best junior heavyweight tag teams in Japan.
The Time Splitters, right? Wasn't that
they were the Time Splitters, which is why Kushida is called the Time Splitter. The whole thing was they got together in junior heavyweight division. They used to fight the Young Bucks back when the Young Bucks were still kind of relevant in America because they had just gotten done doing their TNA thing with Generation Me. They went to Japan and did the Bullet Club thing, and those were one of their major rivals during that period of time. So they were not an insignificant tag team in Japan. They were in Wrestle Kingdoms wrestling the Young Bucks when they were juniors.
Sorry, I always giggle when I hear Generation Me because it's like, just call them the friggin' Young Bucks.
I know.
You know what I'm saying? Like, Generation Me. And then I always remember Taz saying, who are these Young Bucks? He's like, just call them the friggin' Young Bucks.
I know. Wasn't it they had that offer as like TNA would be interested in bringing them back to do Generation Me again or something like that, and the Bucks are like, what?
Yeah, like what? Like, we're going to
why
do
would
this
we
again?
do
Just call us the Young Bucks.
But look at NXT. How often does somebody show up on NXT and, like, you don't feel like they're important to anything? I feel like a lot of them are just, like, there to fill time on AEW and Raw and SmackDown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I look at NXT, and every person that shows up on NXT, again, like I went back to Toni Storm because that was this week,
Yeah, of course.
felt important. They immediately infused her in and told you why she's important to the picture.
Yes.
And every one of those women in there. And then there's the backstory with Candice LeRae.
Mm-hmm.
And her and Rhea Ripley have been allies, but now Candice is looking at her differently because she's the champ. And, hey, you got some nice bling there.
In a way, it's kind of how NJPW does things. Think about it. Because they do kayfabe to an extent over there. If they have a major wrestler who's built up as this tough guy, you believe it. So when somebody jumps them or attacks them, it's a big deal, and it's like, holy shit, who's this guy who just jumped Tanahashi? I'm like, who is this guy? Like, they'll give you background, but they're like, I need to know who this person is. It's kind of the same thing where it's like, it's not insignificant.
Like Vince needs,
everything is significant.
Vince needs to take some notes from Hunter and NXT.
He
right
does.
Now.
Oh, he does.
Look at the North American title.
Mm-hmm.
They have Keith freaking Lee and getting ready to go after the North American title because and that's a guy who, I'm going to say it again, they have strapped the rocket to his back. And it's been openly verbalized how much Vince loves this guy. How can you not? He is built like a Vince guy. No, he's athletic like the Mark would like. He fits every mold.
Well, if you could compare him to like another wrestler, Bam Bigelow?
I would say Bam Bam to an extent, only because as an athletic big man, you usually do think of Bam Bam because of the fact that he was like 300.
I mean, listen, you have Vader too, who was
Vader
doing
was pretty athletic,
moonsaults.
back in his day, absolutely.
I don't to answer your question, Ryan. I don't think you can compare him to anybody. The guy is a freak of nature. He is a specimen. He is massive. He is built. He's not a small guy in terms of the belly either, but he is as athletic as anybody out there. As what's his name, Montez Ford or whatever his name is.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of like Samoa Joe, for example, to where he was somebody that.
I'll tell you what, Joe might be a guy I might maybe consider. I know size-wise in terms of height, no. Mm-hmm. When you talk about built, him and Kevin Owens would be two guys who I would look at who, if you take away the height and you kind of build, and Kevin Owens isn't built. Joe's a different kind of built, but he's huge. Mm-hmm. When you look at those guys who are big, stocky guys who are as athletic as some of these younger, smaller guys doing crazy things. I mean, to me, I even take them that step above those Bam Bam Bigelows and those Vaders. But those are probably the guys that set that tone for those big guys.
Yeah, they paved the road.
And these guys have taken it to a new level. But I don't think I've ever seen anything like Keith Lee.
What I wanted to ask you guys, not to change the subject too much, but the first time we've been on,
what's up, Dad? Tom Arnone in the chat.
What's up, Tom?
Hey, Tom.
First time we've been on in quite a while, so obviously a lot has happened in the last month and a half, for example. Just around wrestling. But so I wanted to ask you, and obviously the fam, give me one, you say storyline, debut, event, whatever. One thing that has happened since we've been on, last been on, that you've loved, and one thing that you've hated.
Well, I'll start with the thing that I loved. And again,
of NXT or anything?
Anything.
Okay. So anything for me, I'm going to go to Wrestle Kingdom immediately. Naito became the first double champion in NJPW history, winning the IWGP Heavyweight title off of Okada, and becoming Intercontinental Champion all in one weekend. And it was really cool because they set it up like there was multiple guys trying to get double titles, and he was the one who got it. And it was kind of a culmination of a year-long build for that storyline payoff. So I love that. And it was a great match between him and Okada.
I mean, the obvious of hated would be Rusev, Lana, and
Liv Morgan and Bobby Lashley now.
You got to get Liv Morgan involved in that mess.
I know.
You know
so many innocent bystanders have suffered because of this.
I'm gonna sit back and give the Liv Morgan aspect of it a chance to grow, but I think that was a wasted opportunity, bringing her back in that situation, because I love the vignettes that they were running.
Yeah,
and it really did create a curiosity of where are we going to go with this, and then it shows up with Lana.
Well, even though now looking back on them, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. But again, we'll see. We'll see where this goes.
I'm going to go with something that probably nobody would say, but I liked it a lot, and that was the very unexpected appearance of John Morrison popping out of the Miz's locker room, because everybody's expecting to see John Morrison. I don't know that you can make a surprise. They announced it on Backstage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that there's a way that you can have a surprise debut. You would expect him to come out and make a save on something, or to do whatever, or just show up, or be a mystery opponent.
When we were expecting him to show up at War Games or NXT.
Or he'd show up like someone was going to do an open challenge for a belt, like the Intercontinental title, and then Morrison shows up,
But Miz is unhinged right now. That's the angle they're going with. We don't know he doesn't know who he is now. And when she knocks on the door, who of all the opportunities to bring John Morrison back, did you expect John Morrison to just open the door and only just say, Miz isn't prepared to talk to anybody right now, and go back in and close the door? It's now dangling the carrot. I want more. John, talk to me. I want to know what you're doing here, John.
I never thought, and maybe I should have, I never would have thought that John Morrison's first storyline, feud, however you want to phrase it, his first activity back in WWE would be with The Miz.
I mean,
and I'm happy, but that was the best thing. That was going to be my favorite moment from the past month, because to me, I loved them back. What was it, 2009, 2010,
something like that. Yeah, somewhere around that time. Yeah.
So to see it coming full circle now, and we're going to see a 2020 version of this after. I mean, now we have Miz. I mean, because we never thought that version of The Miz, 10, 11 years ago would have gone on to main event WrestleMania. Obviously all the movies. I mean, he's a much different person, alone character he is now.
Not only did he main event WrestleMania, he won his main event WrestleMania match, albeit though it was just to set up the twice in a lifetime contest. But anyway,
the thing that, and listen, your nomination for the Lana, Rusev, Bobby, that whole mess, that's a good one. To me, there's one that goes above and beyond anything. What the hell is going to be the outcome of this friggin' Eric Rowan cage mess? Now it's did you see the Twitter post of WWE?
It's spitting blood out?
Whatever's in the cage is spewing out suspicious red liquid.
I thought it was like eating somebody's face. I thought it ate the dude's
what is
face.
it got, a friggin' spray gun in there? What's in there? Is it Hornswoggle?
It was like Jurassic Park with that thing. It's like he's like all sweet and cute, and then you look at him, it's like, and he spits shit at you. That's like what it was. That's what it was
and then of course I'm watching that and I get sucked down the rabbit hole and I'm searching Google. Oh, Eric Rowan cage, and there's a million.
It was a success then.
No.
And then the social media.
No.
The social media world will pick up on that and create priceless.
Oh, there's
priceless.
I read 10 articles this morning. 10. I woke up and I'm like, okay, I gotta see this. People were saying it's a kimono dragon. People were saying it's Luke Harper. People were saying it's Luke Harper's contract in there. People were saying it's a one-way ticket to NXT, which everyone in WWE has been looking for.
Pretty much. I'm pretty sure that's what everybody on Raw and SmackDown wishes they were on right now. Is NXT.
Someone said that it was Vince McMahon's legendary brass ring. I mean, there's 100 things.
I'll give. I have a couple of honorable mentions for what I liked.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of it before, and I'm not an AOP guy, but I am very intrigued with them with Seth Rollins, and I'm liking this pairing.
Yeah,
I don't mind that. I actually thought that isn't a bad idea of them being the muscle.
I'm liking the way that this is working. And then to piggyback off of that, I'm enjoying the Samoa Joe face turn.
It's
the way it was executed.
Yeah.
You could, even though you could see it coming through the commentary the couple weeks of somebody needs to step in and do something about these guys. I'm enjoying that. Oh, other thing I hate, Jerry Lawler being a heel commentator.
Why are we doing this again?
Yeah,
I know. Why are we doing this again?
Need it.
The only time it ever worked was when he first came into WWE, and it made sense because he was the total opposite of Vince McMahon, who was kind of that blue blood style talking, and he was the total opposite of JR. So it was perfect back then for King. But, if he ain't talking about puppies, I don't think it's going to work with Lawler being a heel.
John says, I'm praying for a Morrison-Ricochet match in a ladder match.
That would be awesome.
He says the one thing you guys never touched on was the whole Lars Sullivan stuff that happened.
Well, that did happen, which I actually thought was hilarious when that. How was that figured out? Like, does anyone even know where that source
because
came
nothing
from?
ever. It's the internet age, and nothing ever goes away. But
That
what
is
I
true,
will
yeah.
say about that, I'm not going to dive into that rabbit hole, which is why I'm not bringing it up. What I will say though is, from his past comments and tweets. Isn't irony a wonderful thing?
It is, yeah.
The internet is truly a beautiful thing.
It never goes away.
No.
Never goes away.
The internet is truly undefeated.
So that's where I'll leave that at. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if you never see him again. And honestly, I wouldn't care. I'm not a Lars Sullivan guy.
There was someone who, though, made a meme where they took one of the pics of it and they put Triple H in there with his with a thumbs up, which is just great. Which I was just crying laughing when I saw that. Anyway.
Isn't it ironic though? We've got Greg Malakovic with bad jokes here behind the camera.
I didn't even hear him.
Isn't it ironic though that
Jesus, break the freaking way up, man.
with his past, he would ironically go after a bunch of guys to destroy them? Because that's kind of his past now.
I'm not gonna.
Oh, that is
move on from
hilarious.
there.
Not gonna say anything.
That is hilarious.
Um,
But for me, the things that I've hated over the last few weeks, AEW related, I hate Orange Cassidy's stupid fucking putting his hands in his pockets and kicking play at the shins. I fucking hate that. That's stupid.
Yep.
I'm also not a fan of Marco Stunt. I know that'll get a disagreement, but I'll just come out with it now.
I don't get it either.
Don't like Marco Stunt.
He is my least favorite out of the
all.
three.
I feel so bad because I'm like, I really want to. I want to love the fact that I'm seeing Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, but I can't. 'Cause I'm seeing Marco Stunt too, and I'm like, God damn it, why is he here? Why he's taking up good, valuable pay that could go to somebody else?
Because
but
it's
anyway,
a boy, a small boy, and his dinosaur.
Oh God, I hope that's not where they're going with that. I hope that it just.
So there's the people who say, and I want to ask, I'll ask Maddie this specifically, but I want to ask you all, or you both, because I can give you my answer.
Sure, go right ahead.
There's still the people that pour over Kenny Omega as the greatest in the world. Do you still feel like he's the greatest? Or is he exposed a little bit more now that he's on television more? Because I could give you a list of people I'd take over Kenny Omega.
I will say no, and the reason why is I think looking at the way Kenny's been working with people, I think when he was in Japan, it was a lot of him working with the other person that helped accentuate what he was doing. I think now that he's worked with some guys who may be as a little bit inexperienced or maybe not as well trained as some people are in Japan, I think it does expose him a little bit more because it shows where he lacks more here, and it's shown because this guy isn't as well trained as one of the guys in Japan he used to face.
Two-part answer. Number one, he never was awarded, to me, he was never awarded the best in the world title. There's only two people over the last 10, 15 years to me
CM Punk.
that no.
And Chris Jericho.
No.
All of them were crowned by Smarks.
Yes.
Let's just keep that out. Let's throw that out there.
There's only two wrestlers over the last 10, 11, 12 years that I have rewarded the title of, in my opinion, the best in the world. And that is
Brodo.
Yes, the
Achievement
highly
Award.
coveted title. Samoa Joe and Cody Rhodes.
Okay.
Those have been the only two I've considered, of that echelon.
In terms of like working wise, yeah, I could see it because like you could put them in against anybody and they usually get a great match out of them most of the time when you see them in the ring.
To answer your question on do I believe is it he's exposed? No, I just think it's an example of they're not showing, and maybe it shows that maybe his range as far as how many things he can do with a character is maybe not as broad as we thought. It's nothing like we saw in NJPW. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's an example of he's a much better heel than a babyface. To where it seems like they're using him as not a sympathetical babyface, but like the crowd hero, the fan. That's not Kenny Omega. Like that's not, you're making him one-dimensional. You know what I'm saying? He was great.
Yeah.
Because he was different. You're not making him different.
And also, I feel like, Kenny, in terms of match quality, I would say I think it may be just not only because of television reasons. I think it may also be because I think they just haven't put him always with the right people to work with. And I think that that's ultimately what's killing him, too, at the end of the day. And I think it may show a little bit of like, okay, maybe Kenny... Maybe if someone's like inexperienced or they're not as good, like I saw a match between him and Jack Evans that I could care less about because that was not a good match and it was on AEW Dark. Do not watch it. It's not worth the time. It's like, okay, maybe Kenny can't work with everybody. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe he needs to work with certain people to accentuate what he can do and he can help accentuate what they do. To me, that's what I'm starting to see with Kenny Omega.
I'm going to give you my list of people I'll take over Kenny Omega.
Go right ahead.
And we'll say agree or disagree.
Today. Adam Cole.
Agree.
Adam Cole, okay.
Johnny Gargano.
I've never been a big Johnny Gargano guy, but I understand. Getting over with the crowd, I would agree.
I will say for now, yeah, all right.
Ciampa.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Ricochet.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Him now, Finn Balor.
This Finn, yes.
This Finn Balor.
Yes. That's
actually Kevin Owens.
Yes. I was going to say that's actually a good maybe parallel, for example, to where, we've talked, for a while about, the old Finn Balor to where that is – no, I'm saying the old as in like what we saw in WWE, kind of the baby face. And we were saying that it was kind of stale. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that could be a perfect parallel to what's happening with Kenny Omega, for example, to where Finn Balor of old, the Prince, we never saw in WWE at all. We saw, obviously, the Demon Balor, but that was only, one side of it. It's showing that he, some of the – and Dean Ambrose – or I'm sorry, John Moxley is, another example to where sometimes these wrestlers, superstars, they have so much more in them, but it's only about what their direction of their character is going in. You know what I'm saying?
I'll take him over Kenny Omega, too.
I mean,
Moxley?
John Moxley.
Okay.
I mean, Kenny, I think what it is, too, is I think also they've been putting him with tag teams with Paige, which I don't understand why they're trying to force that into a narrative, because they're trying to make it seem like Paige is trying to get away from them, which I kind of get, because you don't want Paige to be shackled and be compared to everybody in the Elite when he doesn't have as much credentials to him as the rest of those guys do. But at the same time, it's like, okay, if you're trying to build that storyline, where are you going with this? Are you going to turn him heel? Because that would be a stupid move in my opinion, because I think you need to keep him as a babyface. So it's like, where are you going with this? Maybe if you turn Kenny heel and he turns on Paige, I'll be fine with that. I can live with that. Like, Kenny as a heel was a very good heel. I can live with that. I'm very confused as to what direction they're going with this right now.
Keith Lee could be a guy. He's not there yet for me.
He can be.
I'm going to say this, and I know you guys probably won't agree with me, but with the direction it's going in, this is more of an anticipatory one. Seth Rollins right now. Love this character. Love that he's back to a heel.
Yes.
I think
I'm still in recovery mode with the Seth Rollins thing.
I think he's just as good of a worker as Kenny Omega.
He is. I'm in the same boat with him and Becky Lynch, to where it was overexposure. You know what I'm saying? It was so much of them so often to where, and it's no disrespect to either of them because they're great workers. It's blame of the product to be honest. Anytime I see him, I don't roll my eyes, but I'm like, oh God, because you remember, Seth Rollins was, and same with Becky Lynch, they were each involved. It seemed like 3 different storylines on the same show. So that's why I'm kind of in a refresh mode with those two, especially with Seth. But I agree, the worker and his potential, I would completely agree with that.
Cody Rhodes.
Cody Rhodes, yes.
100%. Joe?
I'm putting age as a factor in this, which is why I don't go to Joe.
Aleister Black?
AJ?
See, that's why I don't put
Same
AJ, because I'm looking at age.
Aleister Black?
No, I don't like the character right now.
Okay.
Buddy Murphy could be
I
a
was gonna
guy
say him,
eventually, but he's not there. There's not enough to say that he's on the Kenny Omega. Like, these other guys, to me, have established enough at this point.
MJF? No, not yet.
Marty
Not there
Scurll?
yet.
Might be a guy I would put up there.
You think he's going to AEW, by the way? Seems like they're waiting for him.
Who?
I don't know.
Marty Scurll.
Probably.
I think he
It's
is.
frustrating.
I mean, he did agree, though, to finish out his ROH commitments, though, before
It's frustrating.
leaving.
I want to see if we're going to have a real war. Like, I don't want to see the good old boys hanging out. And that's what
No.
it feels like. Like, a couple of you guys can change it up. Also, we're getting ready to hop off.
Yeah.
Just an FYI, if anybody, you can find Access on Access TV now. If you have Comcast, Impact, you don't have to watch everything on Impact. Tessa Blanchard and Sami Callihan in that program
They're
right
awesome.
now
They're awesome.
is unbelievable.
They have single-handedly brought me back.
That is a top two. That
Impact.
is a top 2 or 3 storyline in all of professional wrestling right now.
And it's different. It's different, which
so
is so
freaking
refreshing to
different.
say.
And also, it's awesome how big Sami Callihan is, and he's very open about it, how he was all about intergender wrestling, and he doesn't look at his intergender. It's just wrestling.
No, I mean, you can't really say much about it as long as, Tessa can handle herself, so it's no big deal. All I can say is in terms of if you're not a fan of what WWE's doing on Raw and SmackDown and you like NXT, there's plenty of other avenues for you to explore. So if you want to bitch and moan about WWE, you can, but you can't say that there isn't anything else out there to watch because we just named everything.
What do you got before we hop
A
on?
real quick agree or disagree question from John. Braun Strowman has fizzled out big time.
Agree.
Yes,
Agree.
110%.
I definitely agree. All right.
That was fun.
This was a fun show. Thank you again to Nikita.
Yes.
Again, if you missed it, guys, check us out on all of our social media platforms. You can go back. You can watch the show on Facebook, Instagram, Periscope, Twitter, YouTube. If you can't do that, you got a car ride tomorrow. If you're going to sit in some traffic, guys, check it out on Apple Podcasts. I keep wanting to say iTunes.
It's iTunes. People
Apple
call it
Podcasts,
iTunes.
Google Play,
Spotify.
SoundCloud, Spotify, and what's the one I always forget?
Spreaker.
We're all over the place, guys. Check it out. The Takeover is real.
Hell yeah, man. It's going to be awesome.
Who sponsored us?
We are sponsored by Specialized Physical Therapy, the Dr. Paul Vidal.
The Doc.
Yeah, that's right. He's the real doctor, not Dr. Tom Pritchard.
Or
He's the real
Dr.
doctor.
Shelby.
Yeah, or Dr. Shelby,
Oh, God,
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
Dr. Shelby.
No, Dr. Shelby's a quack, but Dr. Paul Vidal is not.
Nah, thanks to our sponsors, Specialized Physical Therapy, ATS Sports Picks. Remember, guys, 20% off with the promo code A2D, atsportspick.com. For me and Maddie, great week. Mr. Brodo, thank you again. Stay tuned, top of the hour. The hockey guys, hockey happy hour coming at you. Huge win for the Flyers last night.
A needed
That place
win.
was freaking electric last
Oh, my
night.
God, must needed.
But until next week, guys, we love you. Take care. Have a great week.